morning, everybody, and welcome to the virtual Cambridge Union. Today, bright and early, we will be welcoming Darren Gough. He's an English cricketer turned presenter. He's having been described as the heartbeat of the team. Darren is English cricket's most successful wicket takers. He's also now hugely popular as a radio personality with his drive time show that received millions of listeners on TalkSport every week. Darren also won Strictly Come Dancing in 2005. Without further ado, please welcome Darren Gough.
Good day, everyone. Hope you're all well. Beautiful day we've got outside. Sunshine where you are, obviously. Bit of rain where I am, near Milton Keynes.
Thank you so much for that, Darren. My first question is if you could tell me a little bit about your journey into sport.
I've always been a sport Billy. What I mean by that is, but every single sport, I've always loved from being a very, very young child from where I can remember. But it all started really. I come from a little place called Monkbretton in Barnsley. Barnsley, obviously, during the before my time and just after, was very much a mining community. My grandparents worked in the mines. My mum was a midwife. My father did every job possible. But he became very good in his profession, which he's still doing because he's obsessed by work in pest control. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up. They went to work every single day, dropped me off at my grandparents. And my dad's brother, who was still living with his mum at that time, obviously was mad in football. So very much growing up, it was a case of just playing football with him every day, concentrating on skills. I used to be unbelievable at doing kick-ups, catching the ball on the neck, and all that sort of stuff. But one thing now, when I look back and we look at the research that's going on in football at this moment in time, one thing I remember him used to do, which is not ideal, probably affected my schooling, was he used to kick the ball as high as he could in the air. I used to head it. And because the biggest fear for any child when they play football, when they first start playing, is heading the ball. But I never had a fear for heading the ball because, like I said, not ideal now when you look at the research that's been put into professional sport, especially football. But heading the ball has probably not done me any good over the years. But thankfully, football wasn't my chosen path. But growing up, football was my life. Cricket, I played during the cricket season. Tennis, I played during Wimbledon. Rugby, I played when England were playing. Obviously, when all sport was on BBC then, you used to see everything. The one thing I'd love to have done is F1, but never had the car or the money to go karting, if I'm honest. Like I said, football all the way up to really being 17, 18 years old was everything to me. Didn't work out that way. Got the break in cricket. Quite late in life, almost a second chance, and I took it. I can go into the how that came about if you'd like, but my first choice in life was always football. I was always very talented, always good. Used to win holidays all the time for my family by going to these holiday resorts. I was always the best footballer. Used to win a free holiday to another resort. And we basically spent my childhood getting free holidays by me being good at football, doing kick-ups and catching the ball on my neck. I'm like a circus act.
That sounds so interesting. So then, given that you're focused so much on football as a child, why did you think cricket was ultimately the sport that you focused on?
Well, like I said, from football, I was playing for Barnsley Schools, which is obviously that's my local town. From being 8 in an under-11 side, that's the talent I had. I played with Barnsley all the way through to 16. And I was absolutely convinced that I was going to make it as a professional footballer for my hometown, Barnsley, who were playing in the old League Two at that time. And then suddenly at 16, they said, no, they weren't going to take me on. Which was it was a massive, massive shock, if I'm honest, at that time. So I thought I was one of the better footballers, and I'd been all the way through my youth. I was probably a little bit small at 16, and we played in an era, football was played in an era at that time where it was all about speed and movement. It wasn't about skill, which I had obviously a lot of skill. It was about pace and being athletic and being big and being strong. Football, like I said, would have been around 1987 at this time, 86. So I didn't fit into that kind of dimension. They looked at my parents. My mum's quite small. My mum's only 5'2". My dad's probably 5'9". So for me, they looked at my parents and thought, if he's grow, he's going to be probably the tallest he's going to be is 5'10". They weren't far off. I'm just over 5'11". So I'm pretty happy with that, to be fair. Yorkshire schools cricket. I did play cricket, by the way. It's not a sport. Like I said, I did play at a decent level. Whenever I went for trials for Yorkshire schools, I believe there was a kind of elite mentality there. When you go and you write down which school you go to, if you ever looked up the school I went to, it's called Priory Comprehensive. It's not probably the best school, if I'm going to be honest. It's quite a tough school. And what I mean by that, it's helped me in the long run. A lot of tough upbringing, a lot of fighting. When I look back, if you didn't do that, you didn't survive as a young man who was good at sport, which I was, which made it worse because there's a slight jealousy towards me. But when I went for Yorkshire schools and I said, I'm from Priory Comprehensive in Barnsley, it went against me a lot. And I never made Yorkshire schools under 14s. I made the second team. The under 15s, I got in the second team. And then suddenly at 16, I had that growth spurt when let down by football a little bit. And I suddenly became this couple of yards faster with a ball at cricket. I was batting pretty good in them days as well. And I got a little bit of a break where from not being able to get in the under 14s and 15s when it was a school association and it was run by school teachers who very much wanted to pick children from their own schools because it always looks good on paper. And then suddenly to under 16, when it starts to be run by an association, i.e. the county, Yorkshire, my county, I got my break. I played in the under 16s. I played also in the under 19s. So from not being able to get in my own age group at school level, suddenly playing in then to the under 16 and under 19s Yorkshire schools. And it went pretty quick from there, if I'm honest. But football was still my dream, and I didn't give up on football. I had a trial with Norwich City. My parents had moved down there. I'd still live with my grandma up north because of my sport and finishing school. And then I got an opportunity with Rotherham United as a YTS, £27.50 a week, which was great. I had an hour and a half journey on a bus, 3 buses every day to get there. But I loved it. I was trying to fulfill my dream of being a professional footballer. But my cricket was coming on very, very quickly. I was getting noticed at nets, and people were saying, whoa, hang on a minute. Well, cricket, we like the look of you. And I'd never, ever been, people couldn't believe this, I'd never been to a first-class cricket match. So if you're looking at first-class cricket, whether you play at Cambridge or Oxford or the county scene, Yorkshire, Essex, I'd never even been to one. All I'd done all my whole life is follow football, been to football grounds all around the country, because that's the sport I loved. Suddenly, I'm part of the Yorkshire setup, not contracted, but they're looking at me, and I've never been to a first-class cricket game. And then I played in an under-19s game and got 8 for 13 for the under-19s as a 16-year-old. And then that's when I had to make the choice. I was at Rotherham at the time, but Yorkshire offered me a big apprenticeship on a lot more money, and I took it. And I went in head first. I dived in, and luckily for me, it was the right choice. Cricket took over from that moment in time. I was about 17, and it happened pretty quickly from there. So it was a bit of luck. It was second choice, but I was living the high life. I'd made it as a professional sportsman, but not my chosen path. It was weird.
How did that feel when you realized?
Sorry, you got a bad signal there. Can you repeat that, please?
Oh, sorry about that. How did that feel when you realized you'd made it necessarily the way that you envisaged?
Um, well, like I said, having never been to a first class game, I was just pleased, but I got a job. If I'm honest, I left school. We did O levels back in my time, and I wasn't academically. I wasn't the best. I didn't really concentrate on my schooling. All my reports from school were all that I was a bright child, but didn't try hard enough, wasn't interested, always believed he'd make it in professional sport. And when I look back now, that's one disappointment I do have, because in schooling, I really, really now, I wish I would have really concentrated. I came out away with 2 O levels, but I should have done so much better. No revision at all, and I mean at all. Literally just went straight in and wasn't bothered whether I passed or failed. And probably that's part to do with my upbringing, where education wasn't really pushed. My family didn't really push it, but it's definitely helped me as a parent with my children, because the one thing I wanted to give them in life out of anything is education and the right schooling. Now, I was lucky financially, I could afford it. They went to a school which is not far from where I live, called Swanbourne House, a very good school. And then they went to Stowe. Now, Stowe is a private school, not far from me either. And it was terrific for both my children. One of them's got dyslexia. So we had to be very careful with him, with Stowe, because it wasn't their strength with, obviously, help. You know what I mean? Learning difficulties and stuff like that. That wasn't something they was great at. So we tried him at a Quaker school called Kingham Hill to start with. I think it was Kingham Hill. They were really good, but their sport wasn't the best. So we ended up going to Stowe. I did a deal with them at Stowe, and they really helped him through. So that was good. But that realization of making it as a professional sportsman was great. I probably got a little bit lazy the first 2 years. I know it sounds daft as a professional sportsman. You take your foot off the pedal, you think you've made it, you think you're Billy big time, and it probably took me another 2 years before I really, really reached my potential. Like I say, I was a young kid living the dream, got my own car, living away from home at 16 and a half, 17 years old. And I thought I'd hit the jackpot, but I realised that it was going to be a little bit harder than that.
What are the challenges that you found that you didn't anticipate in professional sport?
Well, like I said, suddenly, from living at home and having my parents absolutely do everything for me, I'm now living in Leeds, in digs, with students who were at Carnegie College. And suddenly I've got to do a lot of things for myself. Being away from home, discipline I lacked. I think it was always something I've lacked throughout my whole life. I still do. And looking after myself and eating the right things. I was really, really slow and realizing the work that needs to go into have success as a professional athlete. And I slacked in that department. Some people can eat what they want and drink what they want and have no issues whatsoever. I wasn't one of them. My genes from my family, like I said, they're not very tall. And potential, I got potential to blow up pretty quick. Not where I'm huge, but not to the standard I've got to be at to be a professional athlete within cricket. So I didn't really have that discipline when I first started. So it took me a while to adjust to life away from home, cooking for myself, feeding myself, and not going to the shop at 10 o'clock at night and getting a 50p mix with cola bottles and sugary sweets. And back in the day, you know what I mean, wine gums, midget gems. So that was difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Changing tacks a little bit, what would you say was your proudest achievement in cricket?
Well, obviously the proudest thing, I'm a Yorkshireman, and one of the things we don't show enough is emotion. I find it, I don't know why. it tends to be a trait, especially South Yorkshire, where we quite. But the one time where there were probably a tear that dropped down my eye was my debut for England in a one-day game at Edgbaston. That was just wow. I'd always played in front of a small crowd playing county cricket, but to turn up to Edgbaston, one of the loudest grounds on the circuit, and rock up there for an England one-day international and run out, opening the ball and taking the first over, the noise just took over and the emotions just run through you. And that was the one time I thought, whoa, get it together. And I had to get it together pretty quick because I was opening the bowling. So that was a very, very proud moment. But the one that will stick with time and everybody will remember is probably the hat-trick. It's the only thing that represents cricket, really, other than my cap, my first cap in my house, which is, you just quite see it behind me, is the hat-trick I got against Australia in 1999. I think it was the only one of that century. Still no one's done it since for an Englishman going to Australia. It's amazing. I've got 7 or 8 hat-tricks in my life, mainly playing county cricket, first-class cricket. But to do it for England against the old enemy, the greatest team that had ever lived, the 90s Australian team, was probably, when I look back now, the proudest individual moment playing for England.
Wow, that's really cool. My next question is, you've been described as the heartbeat of the British cricket team. Why do you think that was?
Personality. I think the way I am. Like I say, at the time you don't see it, but when I've seen books being written by my teammates, people around the same age as me, and people that are 10 years younger than me, who I'm very good friends with, like Kevin Peterson, Andrew Flintoff, and Simon Jones, and Matthew Hoggard, Stuart Broad, who's still playing. And they talk about a lot about a 90s team that were losing. But I had a never say die attitude. Even when probably 10 out of the 11 thought we'd lost, I was the one who always believed I could win. And that probably put me in good stead throughout my whole career. I always had that from a little, quite competitive. And I would never give in until that until it was over. It's just the way I was. And the personality, I take the mickey out of myself a lot. I take the mickey out of a lot of other people. I've done some silly things as a cricketer. I dressed as Father Christmas once. It's a game in Australia when we were losing, a warm-up game before the first test. And listen, it was a warm-up game. And although we wanted to win, we got hammered and I wasn't playing in the game. So I just tried to lift a few of the lads with a few jokes, dressed as Santa. And it did. It took us out of that depression because we knew the headlines, what they were going to be the next day. And I always wanted to make people smile. I always wanted to make them laugh. I always wanted to take the mickey out of them, took the mickey out of me. I was one of the most, I wasn't one of them who liked to take the mickey out of people, but I couldn't take it myself. I've always been the brunt of the jokes in the dressing room. They love it. Goughisms, they used to call it. I used to say things, get my words muddled up and stuff like that. But I think my biggest compliment, and I saw another lad do an interview the other day, Matthew Hoggard, played for England, very good player. And he talked about, when I was a leader, my leadership qualities. He said, one thing about playing under Darren Gough was if there was something to be said, he would say it, and he would say it again and again. He would push you to the limit of your performance and realize, but he'd lead by example. But his greatest skill was he's hard on the outside. But as an individual, if you were struggling, he'd be the first person not to do it in public, who would come and see you and ask you if you need any help, if you want to chat, and move forward and keep it between me and him. And when I look back, I never thought that. But when I look back and I've heard so many people say it, that makes me feel really proud because, like I say, I'm this closed off individual. I am this person that kind of never shows my emotions. But I know deep down I've got a huge, huge heart. And I think to see that people see it kind of means the world to you. Do you know where I'm coming from? It's weird. And you never see that when you play. You never see it. You're in this kind of tunnel vision where you just play cricket because that's what you're good at. You're getting paid for it. You want to reach the top. And I think there's some of the reasons why I was the heartbeat, really, is but I lifted my teammates. I never say die. And even when we were playing rubbish and the team were losing, individually I was shining. And I think that's what it came down to, the heartbeat.
Wow, that's really, really insightful. My want to move and change towards professional sports broadcasting. So how did you think you managed the transition out of playing professional sport? Was it difficult?
Yeah, very difficult. I'll be honest with you. I thought I had a chance with personality. I'm outspoken. But you always have that worry. What am I going to do? I had an advantage of being a big name in the game. And I had a choice. I got offered another contract when I decided to walk away. And I'd planned for it 2 years in advance. I'd had therapy. I was talking to people about handling transition, what to expect, what's my way forward, positive thinking with it, what am I good at. I also started planning I got a job doing my own cricket show on 5 Live, which is the enemy now because I work for TalkSport. I'm in private radio, but I got an opportunity with BBC, my own cricket show. I did that every Wednesday from when I was still playing. So wherever I was in the country, whichever ground, after the game, I went straight into this mobile radio car and put my earphones on and did my own cricket show every Wednesday. My first offer when I retired was to work for BBC to do the test matches only and my own show once a week. And when I looked at it financially, it just didn't fit. I just thought I'd be taking a huge, huge gamble to go down that route of just having 25 days cricket in the UK and my own show once a week. It's something I probably wanted to do, but I'm really glad I didn't take it at that time. Because the one thing I didn't want to do was go and be away from home again. I've done it my whole life. I missed so much things during my cricket career. I missed the birth of my first child. I was in Australia. I only was there for the birth of my second child because of injury. I had a serious knee injury and I was off for 9 months. So I was there. I was home for the second child. And I didn't want to be away again. So I didn't want to be a coach at that time. I didn't want to be a broadcaster, as in going around following the cricketers, working for Sky or BBC at that time. I wanted a total break from it. And I was playing in a golf day at the Grove in Watford. And a guy called Mosdi, who was a programme officer at TalkSport, said, listen, I've got you a job. Do you fancy working? He said, it's TalkSport, but it's mainly football. But you'll be our first cricketer to come on and do 3 days a week. And on Fridays, so 2 days doing kickoff, which is 7 till 10 at night, which I wasn't too overly blessed with, and one doing drive time on Friday. So I said, okay. A month later, I was on drive time 5 days a week. I must have done okay. I can remember being very nervous, not knowing what I was going to be doing. I was talking about sport I've always loved, so I was lucky on that. People don't realise that. And that's been my biggest challenge, I think. I've worked in broadcasting now 12, 13 years. I do cricket again now. Obviously, I do some cricket. I've just signed for Sky for the 100. I've done cricket commentary with TalkSport, which have been award-winning. But still, I've done 3 football World Cups, 2 European Championships. Football is the main thing on TalkSport. But one of the biggest obstacles for me is I'm always in a fight against the listener because I'm talking about football and they know me as a cricketer. And they don't realise, but football was my life. I'm as passionate about football as any footballer would ever be. And it will always be, if they don't agree with something you're saying, they will always bring, what's a cricketer talking about football for? And for some reason, people still have that mentality. But I'm exactly the same person as that person who's on the end of the line or who's on the end of a text or on the end of social media. I'm exactly the same as them. I'm a fan. And the good thing and the passionate thing about Talk Sport, it is a fan station. It's communication with each other, the broadcaster and the fan on a daily basis. That is brilliant. It's whenever that station started, there's no surprise to me it's been a huge success because it's had access from broadcasters to the public on a daily basis. And I've done it for 12 years now, 13 years. Amazing. I've loved every minute of it.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, the interest between the broadcaster and the fan. Going off of that, how did you balance in sports broadcasting between information and giving coverage and humor and really connecting to fans?
Natural humor. I've always been pretty sharp when it comes to that. I do it. If anybody hears me on radio, they will hear. I always take the mickey out of myself. I think that's one thing I do quite a bit. And when we do the best bits every single day, I know I'm going to be, after our show, as we close out the show, it's always, right, see you tomorrow. Here are the best bits from today. And the first voice you will always hear on the best bits is always mine. It's always some kind of joke or take the mickey out of myself or take the mickey out of someone else. And it's light humor. But we have some very, very serious discussions on TalkSport, especially this last 2 years, as you can imagine, with everything that's gone on in the world and diversity in sport and all that, and racism. So you have to be very prepared. You have to be careful what you say. You have to do a lot of research on a daily basis. People might not realise that. I tend to get to work at about 1:45. My show starts at 4. And I sit there and I don't budge for 2 hours of research. Now and again, you get things wrong. You might say something wrong. Because remember, you do the research, but a lot of it is in here. You're not reading off a script. So a lot of it is in here. And it can be very difficult at times. We've done some very powerful interviews. We've also done some great stuff and enjoyable stuff and proud of individuals who have come out and done stuff in sport. But there's always time for humour in any walk of life, whether you're a student in class, or whether you're at work, in an office, there's always time for humour. And I think it's important that people laugh.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a sentiment that we need at the time. What was Strictly Come Dancing like?
Weird. It happened in 2005. I'd gone through a divorce in 2003, and I'd made a decision, but I wanted to spend more time with my children. So in 2005, I got back into the England side as a 35-year-old, and I'd done well. And I thought it's probably a good time not to go away. So I decided not to go on a tour to Pakistan. It was a short tour. I was only playing one-day internationals at that time. And I was away on a stag do, believe it or not, for 4 days in Spain after the end of the season. And I got asked to do a very popular reality show. And it wasn't for me. And then I got asked to do another show. The first version of Celebrity Love Island was in 2005. And I got told the people that was going to be on it, and I thought that wasn't the show for me. Celebrity Love Island. I'm 35 years old. I'm way too old for doing stuff like that. And then honestly, it was like floodgates just opened for me to do these shows. And then Strictly came and offered me to do it. They were desperate to get me on. They've created an extra space to get me onto the show because obviously I was one of the best cricketers England had had for a long time. And I decided I'd do it. I thought I'd be out in week one, I will be honest. I didn't really put any effort into that first 2 weeks training because I thought I'm just going to make a fool of myself and be out in week one. But at least I got paid for it and it'd be a nice little learner for the winter. And then after week one, I fell in love with it. I'll be honest with you. And it was a huge, huge challenge. But I need challenges. I need someone to push me. I need a challenge. And when you're being pushed from 2 hours a day, which I was doing at the start, to suddenly then wanting to do 6 hours a day, 6 hours a day training. And I did that for the next 10 weeks and went on and won it. Now, again, I think personality played a big part in that. It wasn't all my dancing skills. There was other people on the show that were probably on a par, if not better than me. Zoe Ball was pretty good. Colin Jackson was excellent. He was so athletic, so fit, could do somersaults and everything. But personality, I think, played a big part on me winning that show. And I'm really glad I was part of a show when I called it authentic. I think now it's become so Americanized, the show, where the public, for me, should be the ones who get the vote, whether you go through to the next round. They're the people who are watching in their millions, 13 million people watching the show. And they decided who went through week after week after week after week and the winner. But now when you watch Strictly and you watch most shows, the judges want the power to, if the public vote, which they do, then the bottom two, it's down to the judges then to decide which one goes through. I don't like that because whoever's the best dancer in week one, let's be fair, is going to get to the final because the judges will make sure. Because if they're ever in the bottom two, the judges keep put them through week after week after week after week. And it's happened. And it shouldn't be about that. It should be about your dancing skills and your personality and your likability and where you've come from the start of the show to the end. I don't think that's part of Strictly anymore. And I'm really glad I did Strictly when it was real.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you think they could change it in a way that would make it more real besides?
Well, by not giving the judges the power, yeah. I mean, take it to the people. That's what it should be about. It's a reality show. The people are the ones who should be voting for the winner or voting for the guys, not voting and then the final two decide, the judges decide which one goes through and which one doesn't. I don't think the judges should have any power. They should judge, say what they think about each dance, give you the mark, you see where you are in the table. Now it's up to you, the public. You decide who you want to go through. That's the way it should be. But for some reason, it's not anymore. And it frustrates me. But there's still been some great champions. Don't get me wrong. There's some great dancers. And I couldn't even compete with some of those people now. But what I'm proud of is I won it in 2005. I won the Christmas special in 2005. I went back in 2007 and won Champion of Champions. And I also won the first tour. They had one real show. They have shows everywhere. We did 30 odd shows around the country, but we have one which they filmed for the Christmas video, which is like the ultimate one. And I won that one as well. So when it comes down to it, Strictly was an amazing experience. It was a weird experience. I had a lot of Mickey taken out of me, but I'm proud that I was the first male winner. And I think for someone like me, the way I am, the way I talk, the way I'm built, to win a show like that, Strictly Come Dancing, I think it opened it up to people. It gave people confidence to try it. You know where I'm coming from? By me from Yorkshire, from Barnsley, being a proper lad, stocky, winning a dance competition, I think it gave a lot of men confidence out there and children confidence to try dancing. And I'm proud of that, proud of it.
Yeah, that's really, really inspiring. My next question is, you turned down David Cameron's offer to be an MP?
Well, if I'm honest with you, I've never been into politics. It came about by A friend of mine is a guy called Nigel Adams. He's in the cabinet now. He's an MP for Selby and Ainsty. Now, he was on my cricket benefit committee in 2001 when I was awarded a benefit for services to cricket. And he was on my committee. I've known him since he was a successful businessman in telecoms. And he asked me to do a video promoting him as an individual, what I thought of him, and if he'd make a good MP. And I did this video, and believe it or not, he got in as an MP for Selby and Ainsty. And a couple of years later, David Cameron saw the video and thought, we could use this guy. Mainly, I think it was PR. They wanted some PR. I met his guy. I met them. I went to Chequers, and he asked me if I'd run for an MP in Barnsley. There was a spot up in the Conservative. Now, where I'm from in Barnsley, the Conservative Party is not looked upon as the best party in the world. Purely Maggie Thatcher and the miners' strike. You only have to do your research and look into that. So, because I promoted a friend who was a Conservative, and he thought he wanted to show that Darren Gough could run for an MP in Barnsley as a blue in a very dominant red area. And I'm talking 99% red. So immediately I said no. But yeah, you've known it. The PR got out there and the story was done. I still get abuse to this day from people from Yorkshire saying that I'm a traitor, I've become a blue and all that stuff, which is hilarious. But it is a funny story. And the funny part of that story is how it came about was I'd finished at Talksport at 7 o'clock. I get the tube down to Euston. I get off the tube and I go get the 7:43 train back home every single day. And the train comes up, mine's departed. I'm late for some reason. And my phone rings. There's no block number. It's a mobile number. And I answer the phone. And he said, "Hi, is that Darren?" I said, "Yeah, it's Darren." I said, "I'm just running for a train." He said, "Oh, it's David Cameron here." I went, beep, beep. I said, "Don't be so stupid." Now I put the phone down. So I thought it was one of my mates in sport winding me up. So then Nigel Adams rang me. Oh, obviously I know his number comes up, Nigel Adams. And he said, "Right, you've just told David Cameron to F off." He said, "He's going to call you back." I said, "Okay, I apologise, Ed, tell him to call me back." So I'm on the train and he calls me and we had an unbelievable conversation, 15-minute conversation. And he told me what he wanted. He asked me if I'd go and meet him. And let's say I went to Chequers, which was weird. And I really liked him. He was a really nice bloke. His kids were just running around in Chelsea kits. And we had lunch there. But it wasn't for me. Like I say, I've no real interest in politics and never have. So there was no way I was ever going to run for an MP. But it is a true story.
That's very funny, really offering an injection of humour. A student question's just come in that's asking, what do you think the future of English and Welsh cricket looks like?
Well, at this moment in time, the cash reserves are down to under 2 million. If you consider at one point they had nearly 90 million cash reserves, you only have to look at what's gone on in the last 2 years. Financially for the ECB, it's been an absolute disaster. When you look at the revenue, if you look at revenue from the ECB, and I put my glasses on here because I wrote this down because I thought you might ask me something about this. Revenue fell for the ECB by 21 million, right, to 207 million. And that's all because of this last year, where you look at the biosecure bubbles England have had to live in, the private jets they've had to fly around the world in, and the cost of staging a new tournament, the 100, being delayed by a year. It's absolutely led to the cash reserves and the revenue falling in great numbers. So there is a little bit of a concern there for the ECB financially. they are going to be relying heavily on a good summer of cricket here. Now, we're in a good position now in the UK. We're getting back to some kind of normality. But we've seen with COVID, the different strains around the world. We've just seen the IPL being taken apart halfway through. I thought they were probably 10 days too late in cancelling that tournament. I could not believe that was still going on when everything around them in India was falling to pieces, and the health system was under so much strain over there in India, and they were playing a global tournament with the resources needed for that and the testing that was going on just 200 yards from the local hospital. I found amazing. So financially, cricket is not in a good place, but like I said, summer is amongst us. Cricket is being played. There's no fans in there. We have got these trial events now. Fans are gradually coming back in. The international calendar's busy. We've got India over, which is a huge financial series for England. Let's hope we can have full crowds in by then. Hospitality is back to normal. And obviously the cash reserves will rise pretty quickly if that happens. Now, if we get more strains and we're back in other lockdowns and stuff like that, which I don't think we will, there will be a real concern for sporting boards, whether it be the EFL in football, whether it be the rugby union, whether it be the ECB, whether it be the PCA, which is a players' representative. I think financially they'll all be in a very, very difficult place. So it's a bit of a concern.
Yeah, for sure. Another student question that's just come in is, what's your favorite type of cricket game format to play and why?
Well, my preference is I love one-day cricket, but the one thing I want to be remembered for is my test performances. And I think people get mistaken by this, because playing T20 cricket now, which a lot of the guys get financially well rewarded for, they get a lot of money to play 6 weeks in India. The best players are getting 1.5 million for 6 weeks in India or 8 weeks in India. So you can see why these guys want to play it. But I think realistically, we know the best cricketers will always be remembered for their performances in Test cricket, the 5-day format. And it is what it says. It's a test. It's a test of your ability over 5 days in different conditions all around the world. And over a period of time of over 20, 30 test matches, your career will be defined by your averages. It always will be. And that is the ultimate test. So for me, what I enjoy playing is one-day cricket, of course, but what I want to be remembered for is my performances at the test, in the test arena. That's the ultimate test of a cricketer.
That's really another student question that's come in says, you've raised over £1 million in your work for charity. Why have you pursued this? And can you talk about the causes you've supported?
Yeah. Again, I retired. A year went by and I wanted to give something back. I've done a few things. A friend of mine, who sadly is no longer with us due to mental health, he organised a bike ride. He worked for a company called Investec, who have always been a big supporter of cricket. And he asked me to front up a bike ride for Lord Taverners, which is obviously a huge charity within cricket. You might see the minibuses that go out and about, the green minibuses with Lord Taverners, taking cricket to schools and deprived areas and stuff like that. And I did this bike ride and we raised over 350,000 on this bike ride. I was a front man for it. Although it wasn't me that raised all the money, it was people we got to join the ride, employees of Investec, sports people. So that was the first dip into helping with charity. And I've not counted in that in some of the money we have raised. That was down to Investec. But then I got a letter through the post and my wife opened the letter. And it was from a young boy called Alex Bolt. He was 15 years old. And he said he got a brain tumour. He was a massive fan of cricket and I was his favourite player. Could I send him a signed photo? But reading the letter, it was heartbreaking. But he got this brain tumour and the outcome of it wasn't looking good. And my wife just showed me this letter. She was in tears. So I thought, I'm not sending him a signed photo. And he'd left his number on there. So I rang the number, and it was his home number, and his mum answered. And when I told her who it was, they're a very cricket-loving family. She was blown away, but I'd rang. And he said, in fact, I said, where do you live? They said where they lived. And I got in my car, me and my wife, and went to visit them. And I sat down with him. He was quite tired. He was going through some treatment. And I spoke to his family, and their school teacher at the time was organising a little charity golf day that we were hoping to raise £5,000. And it was at Wentworth. I said, you've got a golf day at Wentworth and you're looking to raise £5,000. I said, let me get involved. Let me really get involved in this, and I'll take it. I'll do everything I can to raise money. So me and my wife helped the people that were doing it, a little dinner there. And I sold 20-odd teams to play golf at Wentworth on the West Coast, which is a dream to a lot of people. We had a dinner at Belfry, in the one of the rooms after. And that first event, we raised 70-odd thousand. And from 5,000 to 70,000 by just having a conversation. The following year, we raised 110. The year after that, I think it was 140, 150. And sadly, he lost his battle. We went to the funeral. The family are a lovely family. We kept in touch with them. They then wanted to go their own way with it. They'd done the stuff for the Brain Tumour Trust and the Alex Bolt. We got a wing named after him at the hospital. Originally, they wanted to put my name with it, and I said, no. It's not Darren Gough Golf Day, it's the Alex Bolt Golf Day. And it should be in his name. And the family have continued to do their own personal things from losing their youngest son, which must have been heartbreaking. And then I had a year off because it takes some time to recover from all that, putting on events. And then my wife again was watching a TV program. My nickname's Rhino, always has been. I adopted a rhino in 2001 called Magnum, who then got married and had a baby called Magnet. And my benefit year was the year of the rhino. And we got into a charity called Veterans for Wildlife. So we did a couple of events for them, raised over 300,000. And then we went down the volunteering at a rhino orphanage called Care for Wild, which I'm with now. We're an ambassador for. My wife does a lot of the work for them, speaking in schools and stuff like that. And it's a fantastic charity, Rhino Orphanage. We've been hit hard by COVID, cancelling our main event, which we raised £200,000. Our last one we did in one event. This is the way it's gone to now. So we've had to cancel that 3 times. So that's now next March. We did a golf day just in between lockdowns where we had to be social distancing, couldn't have it all together. It was like one team going off in 8-minute periods, could only stay for 20 minutes after until we got up to the 30 group, and then we had to get rid of some. But we raised 70,000 from a golf day, which was amazing. We've got our own wine out now, which has gone down an absolute treat. Care for Wild Wine. It's won 7 awards, gold, silver and bronze. It's hit record sales in a 6-month period. And it all came about by me knowing someone and having a stupid idea to bring out a wine, a charity wine. But it had to be good. And Faigenet Cope Stick, a very well-known brand, got on board. I know Robin Cope Stick. And I thought he was going to bring out 1 bottle. But he brought out 7 bottles of 7 different blends, an entry-level, a mid-level, and the top of the range, which are all named after the rhinos. Our entry level is called Ruby Bell range, which is a Shiraz and a Sauvignon Blanc. Our mid-range is Sauvignon. We've got a Syrah Vaugnier, and we've got a Rosé, which is fantastic if you like Rosé. And then the top of the range is our protected range, which is the black rhino, because there's only 5,000 of them left in the wild. He's Odin, He's one of the rhinos at the orphanage. He's a fantastic rhino. He's fully grown now, Odin. He's great character. And we try to bring out a sparkling one, but because of COVID, we're not being able to get out to South Africa to find the right one, because it has to be a South African champagne fizz. And that's going to be called Sparkle, because there's a rhino called Sparkle at the orphanage. So they're all named after other rhinos. They donate a good part of the profits to wildlife, and the charity's already received a large amount for doing nothing. So it's ongoing, and if we can get into supermarkets when all this calms down, that's when the charity will start hopefully making some serious money. So really proud, again, of what myself and my wife and have done to help some of the charities over the years.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Darren, for today and answering all the student questions. We really enjoyed it. Next week at the Union, we've got a full suite of events. Tomorrow, we are welcoming psychologists Mike Tomasello and Paul Bloom. On Friday, we are welcoming James Quincy, the CEO of Coca-Cola. On Monday, we have our Colonial Artifacts panel and are welcoming the South Korean ambassador to the UK, Anna Park. And on Tuesday, we're welcoming Joel Dommett. Thank you so much, Darren, for your time and answering all our questions, and hope to see you at more of our events.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed it.